just got to begin to chase a dream that is bigger than you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me. My name is Kate Kinne. I'm the registered dietitian with Kinne Fitness. And April, we're talking about stress management. So I thought what a good opportunity to talk about planning ahead to reduce meal stress. We have enough stress going on in our day. Eating healthy is really, really important and not something that we should forego because we're too stressed out. So I'm hoping that I can share some tips with you to help you out with this and make mealtime and meal planning a little bit less stressful for you. So I'm showing you a picture here of what your plate should look like. So before we start meal planning, we kind of need to know what exactly it is we want our plate to look like. So I think this is a really great visual. I use this for all of my clients who want to lose weight or eat healthier or control their blood sugar or lower their cholesterol. I think this is a really fabulous tool for most people out here. And the idea is that when we plan meals, fruits and vegetables should be a main part of it. In fact, half of our plate should be made up with fruits and or vegetables. And I tend to think most of the time the fruits come into play in the morning, and then maybe the vegetables come into play a little bit more in the lunch and dinner, but not always. You can do it any time of day. And then about a quarter of that plate we want to be some sort of lean protein. So that could be protein from animal sources like chicken or fish or lean beef. We do want to stick with lean protein choices there. And then about a quarter of that plate, we want to be including some grains, and most specifically, whole grains as much as possible. So be thinking things like whole grain bread, whole grain pastas, brown rice, wild rice, might be oatmeal, could be quinoa, farro, any of those things are grains, and those are specifically whole grains as well. And then we've got our dairy off to the side, which is, I think is meant to remind us that we need to be getting some calcium in our day too. So that could be from cow's milk, it could be from soy or plant-based milks, but making sure we're getting in some of those dairies or dairy substitutes throughout our day. There's also going to be some fat included in our plate, and that might come in the form of the oil we cook in or the oil in our salad dressing. It might be avocado on a salad or as part of our meal. So we want to include fats that are mostly from plant-based products because they're better for the heart. So keeping that in mind, and then also portion size is always important. So if you're somebody who's concerned about, perhaps concerned about weight, and you might be thinking, you might want to use like the salad plate instead of the dinner plate for smaller portions. One of the other take-home messages before we get into really planning what our meals might look like is that we should really, for health purposes, be eating a more plant-forward diet. So this is not to say that you need to be a vegetarian. You can certainly include animal foods, but eating more plants and making sure to make them a priority in your different meals is really good for our heart, for blood sugar control, for our weight. Research shows people who eat more plants or eat less meat tend to live longer and with less incidence of chronic disease. So important to keep in mind that when I say plants, I don't just mean fruits and vegetables, though those are a fabulous source, but also you can see on here, there's beans, there's nuts and seeds, there's the grains, the whole grains I mentioned, spices and herbs are a really great way to get in some good nutrition. When we are eating a more plant-based diet, we're getting in lots of vitamins and minerals, but also lots of fiber, which we know is good for weight control, for heart health, for blood sugar control. We're getting in lots of antioxidants. Antioxidants come in the form of a lot of the foods that you see here on this slide, and they help keep our cells healthy. So think of it as an immune supporting role. They keep our cells from damage that happens in our environment, from that damage happening, and then also from spreading to other cells. We also get a lot of anti-inflammatories from plant-based foods that help keep that chronic inflammation that can lead to chronic disease, help keep that in check. So by including all of these foods, we're going to be maximizing our health. So our meal plans should always include lots of plant sources. When it comes to meal planning, I would say as a dietitian, this is one of the things that I say to my clients the most often is you have to plan ahead in order to eat healthily. It takes a little bit of work up front, but the time it can save you in the long run is really, really beneficial. Planning ahead is really key to healthy living. And I always think that when you have a cognitive plan in place, you've thought even just for a couple of minutes about, what my dinner might look like when I get home, you're less likely to react emotionally. Like if you know what's in the fridge and what can end up on the table when you get home from work, you're much less likely to stop and grab something that might not be as healthy or as well thought through. So planning ahead is really, really important. And you don't have to plan every single meal, 3 meals a day, 7 days a week. So I like to consider, and I borrowed this from another dietitian that I know, 2, 2, and 2 to 3. A couple of breakfasts, a couple of lunch options, and 2 to 3 dinner options for the week. So if you can think that through and get the ingredients, then you'll be set up really well. You can plan to have some leftovers for some of the meals that can all work out really well. So it helps if you can shop from a list. Keep a list as you're planning those meals, jot down what you need to get. Saves yourself some time in the store, it keeps you from wandering the aisles, which might lead to some impulsive purchases. So using that shopping list and then reusing ingredients where possible. So for example, when you're planning, if you are planning a chicken and rice and stir fry veggies one night for dinner, you could make some extra rice and leave it in the fridge and then have that rice for maybe a grain bowl the next day where you're going to combine some beans and some scrambled eggs and some rice and some veggies and eat that as a dinner, and you've already got one of those ingredients made because you needed it the other night. So planning ahead and reusing ingredients. For example, say you throw some chicken on the grill one night, throw on some extra, pull it off, chop it up, throw it in the fridge or even the freezer. And then you've got that available. You have your chicken tonight, and then you've got some strips to make a wrap or throw in a salad again the next day. So, really planning ahead, making a little bit extra can be really beneficial. And also, when I'm planning a meal, for example, say I'm making an entree that's a little bit more complicated, I don't want the vegetables to take a lot of work. Then I'm going to my freezer and I'm grabbing a steam bag of vegetables. So you can count on some of those items that you might have in the pantry or in the freezer that can make your life really a lot easier. So you can focus on one part of the meal and then the others can just come along with it easily prepared. So keeping things in the pantry and in the freezer like frozen vegetables, canned beans, canned fish, dried grains, even some pouches, there's a lot of great options now for little pouches of whole grains that are already cooked and you just need to throw them in the microwave. However, I would caution and make sure you are checking for the sodium on that, the sodium content. A lot of them can be very heavily seasoned and flavored, but there are some that come with no added salt at all. And so you're just getting the grain. There might be a little oil tossed in there so it doesn't all stick together, but then you can flavor it however you'd like. Prepping ingredients when you get home from the store. So, for example, say you bought a bunch of fresh vegetables that you want to have for salads or for packing lunches. When you get home, if you take the 10 minutes to rinse it, clean it off, chop it up, and throw it in a bowl. Now they're ready to go. So when you're doing a quick lunch in between meetings, you can run to the fridge and have some healthy vegetables ready to go. Because at that point, you're probably less likely to pull them out and clean them when you're in a hurry. So any prep you can do in advance, cleaning things, getting it cut and ready. You can even do some prepping of some raw meat or thawing something the night before so you're ready for it the next day. Also, in terms of meal planning, one of the things I hear a lot from people is I'm so tired of the same old thing. So, some things that might help you improve or expand your recipe repertoire would be to think about, okay, over the course of the week, I really should have some more meatless meals. What is a meatless meal that I can make this week? Maybe it's a spicy black beans with rice. You use canned tomato, a little bit of seasoning, some rice from the cupboard. Maybe it's an egg-based meal for dinner one night. You're supposed to have fatty fish a couple of times a week. The Heart Association recommends that we get fish like salmon, tuna, herring, sardines, anchovies. Those are all really great sources of high omega-3 fatty acids. So maybe we plan for one of our lunches this week would be made from canned tuna, and then we're gonna throw some salmon in the oven another night. So there's two of your meals right there. And I think we tend to get in the same ruts. I would say that my family has tacos every week, but you can always change things up. So it doesn't have to be the same old ground turkey tacos. You could throw some chicken breasts in a crock pot with some seasoning and some salsa, and you do pulled chicken tacos one night, or make some fish tacos one night, or maybe you make nachos instead of tacos, whatever it might be. So find your family's favorites and then just mix it up a little bit. Maybe throw in some different ingredients to keep it more interesting. Batch cooking can be so helpful. There are some recipes that, it doesn't take you any longer to double the recipe than it would to just make a single batch. So whenever you have the opportunity to do that, it can leave for leftovers the next day, or perhaps you throw it in the freezer and then you've got a real easy meal just you have to heat up one night when you get home. And I think it's important to involve the family, involve your roommates, involve whoever you live with, so it's not all on you. You might have kids that are too young to prepare a meal, but could they start something for you? Could they wash the produce? Could they, set the table? Whatever they can do to involve them and give them a little buy-in too, and take some of the pressure off. In terms of breakfast ideas specifically, so in breakfast, think back to that plate idea. We want to have some whole grains. Breakfast is a fabulous time to get whole grains. We want to have some protein and then some fruits or vegetables. So if you go with that, there's lots of different options for you. This picture here shows some baked eggs. You can scramble some eggs and then throw some sauteed veggies or cheese, maybe some lean meats that you would like in your eggs in the little muffin tins, and then fill it the rest of the way up with eggs and bake it. And you have eggs that you can pull out and warm up whenever you need them. Oatmeal, you can do overnight oats if you do equal parts um, raw oats, just the Quaker oats that you haven't cooked yet. So a cup of that, cup of milk, cup of yogurt. I prefer the reduced fat stuff. Stir it up, add a little sweetener. I know of a recipe that calls for 3 tablespoons of honey. I usually do a little bit less and then add some fruit for it. The next morning, you stir it up and eat it. It's ready to go. So, and that would last you for a few days. While you're cleaning up for dishes one night, after dinner, throw some hard-boiled eggs, throw some eggs in some boiling water, make some hard-boiled eggs. That would be a great on-the-go breakfast or a good protein to throw in a salad, a great snack. So think about little ways that you can maximize your time. Some other examples you can see on here: whole grain toast with a little egg and avocado. I mentioned RX bars on here. There are bars out there that I think can make a nice grab and go breakfast or a snack. Always look at the ingredients. I put RX bars because I actually really like the ingredients in those. It's nothing but fruit and nuts and maybe a little bit of spices. So they're very straightforward in terms of ingredients. You can do smoothies, you can do yogurt bowls, peanut butter toast with the banana. You got your whole grain, you got a little protein and healthy fat, and you got your fruit. In terms of lunch and dinner, I've talked about some of these already, but thinking about that plate again. So can we get some baked or some grilled protein, figure out some vegetables, and then some sort of grains? And I love the shortcuts, using bagged salads, just being mindful of how much dressing and the toppings you're using. I mentioned those really easy grains that you can just pop in the microwave. Rotisserie chicken, canned tuna, canned beans, all really good ideas for quick meals. Fish and veggies in a pouch. Take a piece of foil, put a salmon fillet on there, and whatever veggies you like. You could be green beans, asparagus, cherry tomatoes, could be some diced up squash. Put a little bit of olive oil, maybe some dill or lemon, whatever seasonings you like. I like it with a sprinkle of like Mrs. Dash and then you put it in the oven at 400 degrees for about 15 to 20 minutes, and you have your protein and your vegetables. And everybody could kind of make their own. So if there's veggies some people like and not others, they can do their own. I'm a big fan of the slow cooker. Throw in some chicken breasts, put in a half a cup of chicken broth and some seasoning, and let that go. You've got shredded chicken you can do anything with: salads, wraps, barbecue sauce for quesadillas, whatever it might be. Salads, if you've got a salad, add some crunch, add some fruit. grab those hard-boiled eggs or a little bit of feta, some chickpeas for some protein. If you're not a meat eater, don't want to put some meat on there, you can make your own little pizzas at home. That'll be a little bit healthier than doing them, getting them from a restaurant. And a lot of this might come down to just rebalancing your plate. Think about if you're having pasta for dinner. Typically, the plate is mostly pasta, and there's probably some protein in it and some veggies mixed in or some veggies on the side. We want to shift that focus a little bit. Do lots of veggies with some pasta included and some lean protein. I've got a recipe I'm going to refer to in just a minute. Really great sheet pan meal ideas where you put vegetables and protein on a pan and you throw it in the oven and it all cooks together. Protein and grain bowls. I'm a big fan of these lately, and I think I'm referred to some easier, but pick a grain, pick some protein, whether it's chicken or fish or ground turkey, or maybe it's some beans or lentils. Throw in a bunch of veggies, could be raw, could be roasted, a little bit of crunch, some nuts or seeds, and then some kind of fat. Maybe you put some avocado and a little bit of olive oil or a salad dressing. You can see the other options here, but that's a really great way to make some meals. And people, the family can kind of customize what they want to include in their bowls. You've got to have this healthy stuff available. So you've got to stock your freezer, your fridge, your pantry with some of these items that are going to help make these meals come together really quickly. So when you're making your grocery list, think about some of these things that you might want to include, that's going to help meals pull together very easily later in the week. So here's the sheet pan chicken fajita recipe that I mentioned. So this is from Eating Well. You can copy this link or you could probably just Google it here. But this is a great example. You get some chicken. You can even buy it already cut up. You put some oil and the seasonings in a bowl, the chicken that's already cut up, and then you can slice some peppers and some onions and just toss it all in there and you put it all in the oven. This is a recipe that I would actually double and do a couple pans. You could even do the chicken and the veggies separate if different people want to eat different things. It all bakes together. I line the pan with foil, easy cleanup when you're done, and it's delicious. So expand your horizon with some recipes, with some different recipes. Try some of these ideas. Here's my email address. Happy for you to reach out to me if you have any questions. Thanks so much for joining, and I'll see you next time.